Well, that was everything I ever wanted out of the ending of Cross Worlds. What about you?
It sure was a lot of everything. That's about all I can realistically say.
Wasn't it? It sounds like we all got what we wanted out of this. This lot know what it's all about.
Aren't dungeons instanced? How could he have helped Jern in the first place?
They can DL, and also there were the outside bits where I guess they could like catch up and talk about stuff. And I guarantee you that by help, Apollo just meant like he just did everything first because he's super into it, and then just waited outside, and then Joan showed up, and he was like, "Hey, I waited for you. Let me tell you about the puzzles." That seems like the kind of thing he would do.
Can't believe Tronny, like, legit speedran this and was like, "Aight, fuck y'all, I'm out."
It's the perfect cover for the perfect cover for... I lost track of how many levels deep we are on this. It's some kind of quintuple bluff. Anyway, this is the last post-dungeon room in the game, and it has that unique thing in it, which will totally fill in someday. It's gonna happen. There must be some incredible applications for this technology that we're just not using. Just wasting this whole thing on video games. Anyway, here is some lore. This is a fascinating one. The big secret of the report cards that we're getting isn't so much that, hey, this whole thing with the mysterious logs was all about the discovery of instant matter, but actually it was about two things. Number one, you'll note the name on the signature there. You might have forgotten that this is the family of Captain Jet. So, he, I guess, is from a distinguished lineage. Also, there's a date on that report. It is the only date that we will ever see in-game. And it says 3400 relative ACF standard. You might have heard a couple times I've said things to the effect that like, oh, we're like 2 millennia into the future, or like the year of our Lord 3500 or something like that. This whole thing is extrapolating from that one file, because I have just decided that relative ACF standard is equivalent to Anno Domini. And that's how I'm gonna do it. You can't stop me.
I mean, checks out. There's certainly worse ways that you could denote the year.
So yeah, 1400 years from something approaching the present day at time of recording. Hello, future civilizations who discovered this video in Archives of Humanity. Was enough time for us to develop all that space travel and colonize all those stars and build the world's most immersive VR video game. And abuse the hell out of it for sentient AIs. Good work, humanity.
You know, I gotta say, I find it a little hard to believe that in 1400 years or whatever, they managed to build all of this terraforming stuff, all of the instant matter, space travel, all this fancy shit. But they're apparently, like, just now getting around to sentient AI?
I mean, it's a whole thing. We're still not really sure what this would actually look like. All of our AI work these days is, like, it's really complicated algorithms. Algorithms so complicated we can't actually denote how complicated they are. We don't really have this whole, like, essence of intelligence thing down yet. We don't know what the hell it is. Neuroscience is on the case, but remains a work in progress. And again, they technically didn't create strong AI as much as they managed to entirely reproduce existing brains.
That
kind of like how we say, like, we can simulate a brain.
I was gonna say
can't,
that,
but we kind of know what that would look like.
Like, that sounds like that's actually more impressive than just creating a strong AI.
More than that, Satoshi did it by accident. He was just trying to create a latency-free connection and accidentally made a consciousness. Whoops. It happens to the best of us, right? Here's us finally getting these. I've walked by so many of these, it was the hardest thing I've ever had to do recording these videos is ignoring a chest in CrossCode. But we needed it to beat Emily. I gave up pets for content. Here's a butterfly that creates tornadoes. I think it's a worthwhile thing to be dropping here. Oh right, did get that one. So yeah, like, I think the most fascinating weird implication in the lore isn't so much how conscious the CrossCode 2.0 and the evotars actually are, but how conscious the ordinary CrossCodes aren't. Like, we had this whole thing where, like, the evotars are running on these cloned CrossCodes that are just able to run without a player. But what does that mean for the ones that are running with a player? Right? Like, and this is kind of sort of an application for this kind of thing that we kind of do. Like, Nvidia have this video chat technology that totally eliminates latency and gives you a full high quality, high definition video connection by essentially building this AI that's constantly running and is constantly trying to guess what you look like when speaking, and it's running locally on the other person's computer, and the actual video link, the information being sent over the internet, is very minimal. But you've got this other thing running on your friend's PC that's like, hey, this is you. These are the things that I think about when thinking about CrossCode these days, because I've kind of worked through everything else that you can think about CrossCode. That also happens to all of us, right? Or is that just me?
I mean, there are a lot of things to think about in terms of CrossCode. I find it a little surprising that you've managed to think of all of them already.
I mean, I haven't run out, I'm running out. It's still a work in progress. Even in the actual game, I still was at this point discovering fun new applications for things that I hadn't thought of yet, like using flare burn just as a little convenience trick to break plants on the elevations lower than the one I'm on. You can do that. It's valid. And even to the very end, they are throwing the occasional perspective trick at you that, like, just completely throws me. Like, the one door that leads into this area from the starting area is just... there's this rock there, it makes no sense. Anyway, there's supposed to be a little Easter egg here where we see Werven and Puella Doctor show up again, and they're, like, on the ground level at that chest. And Puella's all like, man, we need to get on with this dungeon. And Werven's like, no, I need to update the guide because of this chest. And it was, like, very funny. Like, I giggled a tiny bit. And it's just not there. I couldn't get it to happen. I don't know what's going on. Where are they? Mysteries.
I do like that a couple of the keys we got in the dungeon are just used to unlock these random little areas around the main outside.
Yeah. The keys in Kolero Temple are 100% treasure content. You don't need any of them except the master key for actually traversing the dungeon. It's Category 1 trolling? I don't know if you'd call this trolling. Category 1 something. But yeah, there's 3 total, and almost all of the chests in the overworld on the first floor, like, well, maybe 3/4 of them, require you to do these fairly involved run-ups, which mostly all begin in this screen, the very first, well, not the very first, but pretty much the opening actual area of the dungeon, the bit where the title card pops up. They require you to go on the runaround, fully explore the place. I'm sure it's possible to do a theoretical golden run of all this, where you do the dungeon for the first time at the recommended point in the plot, at the recommended power level, and explore everywhere, and get all the chests, and still beat Emily. But I'm not gonna do it.
That does sound like it would be a bit of an ask.
I'll leave that to the actual speedrunners. My super pro content output's pretty much peaked with the 4.5 minutes in the room at the bottom of this dungeon, and it's not gonna reach that level again. Sorry. I have a capacity for this stuff, and we have exhausted it. These guys are onto something. Let's do exactly that. Let's fight. What do you call the 20? I'm going with 20. 20 crystalids at once. Once again, declaring war on the frame rate. Not actually a terrible idea to fight these guys with the wrong element. Especially since, you can't really put a foot wrong. Most of what you do will hurt most of these, and there'll always be something in this group that's getting the big damage. But they can output a lot of attacks in a lot of, well, very little time. And you can get overwhelmed.
I mean, that would check out. There are 20 of them.
Yeah. These guys are actually kind of dangerous. You don't notice it because most of the time you fight them in combinations that is fairly easy to make die really quickly. This is one of the few points in the game that actually drives home these things being any kind of threat. And these guys actually respond to this. There was no reason to put that in the game, but they did it anyway. I'm a little sad there's no content where you actually make jewellery out of the defeated crystalids. That seemed like it would have been like a decent 5-minute side quest. I wouldn't have complained. Seems exactly like what people in this game would do.
Yeah, that seems like that would be the kind of filler quest that the actual Crossworlds would have. But probably not for our catered CrossCode experience.
Maybe the guilds are all, like, scared of doing it because they think it would anger the ancients or something. That seems like the kind of reason they would have for not doing this. I don't know. By the way, a fun fact about the botanics in the DLC areas is that there are no rare classification stuff. Like, you know how we get you get like the common flower and the very slightly less common flower, and then you get the very rare flower that shows up at like designated high places that you have to work to get to and has a 100% chance of dropping something good. We don't have those here, or on the beach. It's just alpha, beta, and delta stuff, and the strange crystals, which have a 50% chance of dropping a strange shard, and there's a whole lot of them. I feel like the developers maybe learned a lesson at some point. Here's our last drop. It's a bat. It does those little flips and looks cool. Very badass, we promise.
I feel like a little bit of a missed opportunity to not have the pets do something. Like, even if they contributed, like, the tiniest amount of shitty damage, like, you know.
Maybe. They were added, like, literally after 1.0 of the game, but...
Yeah, I'm imagining like a Symphony of the Night familiar kind of thing.
I can see it. Yeah, what's up with you? Let's just get into that. Where do we even start with this? Everyone gets a turn at the existential breakdown. Come on, Tronny, piece it together. This is doable, I promise you.
Well, I mean, no one else is not quite the term I would use, but...
No, I totally see it from their perspective. This is, like, probably the single most sensible thing that Entertainment have done in a while.
I mean, they did kick the whole Avatar business out to begin with, so, like...
Well, they tried to.
I feel like, all things considered, Instantainment has had a pretty solid head on their shoulders throughout this whole... everything?
Imagine making us feel sympathy for a video game company in this day and age.
Gotta say though, big fan of how the plan is, okay, so I know you just had an existential crisis about thinking about all this stuff, but what if we, like, went there directly tomorrow? You up for that, Trotty?
That sounds like a plan.